It all started a few weeks ago. I needed a place to clear my head after a rough breakup. I wasn't an expert on hiking or cabins, but I thought I could manage a week in the woods. I drove my car down winding roads, the dense trees closing in around me. When I arrived, the cabin looked charming but worn. The doors creaked as I stepped inside, and everything felt too still. I didn't know how much I was going to regret being there. I settled in and unpacked my things. I turned on my laptop, hoping to write. At first it was peaceful. I could hear the stream outside, and the occasional rustle of leaves was my only company. That changed around midnight when I heard it, a rhythmic thud from the attic. At first I thought maybe it was just an animal, a raccoon maybe, but the noise wouldn't stop. Thud, thud, thud. I felt cold and uneasy. My heart raced, but I tried to ignore it. It was nothing, I told myself. The next day the thuds continued. I noticed whispers too, soft, strange sounds drifting through the walls. It made my skin crawl. I wandered around the cabin to distract myself and saw that my bag was no longer on the table. It was on the floor. I swore I had left it on the table, and now I felt like I might be losing my mind. I spent the day trying to work on my writing, but my thoughts shifted to the attic. I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to go up there. I gathered what was left of my courage and climbed the rickety stairs. The attic was dark and dusty. It felt like something was watching me. I shivered and scanned the room. My heart pounded when I spotted an old trunk in the corner. It was locked, but the lock looked weak. I opened the trunk with shaking hands. Inside were dusty clothes, some photographs of strangers, and an old journal. The journal belonged to someone named Clara, who had stayed in the cabin long before I did. As I read, dread pooled in my stomach. Clara wrote about feeling watched, about the whispers and knocking noises. Had someone like me experienced the same things? That final night was the worst. I could hardly sleep. The thuds were louder, almost dragging me down. The whispers echoed swiftly, making me feel like I was being drawn into darkness. I jolted awake to see someone standing in my room. A shadow, nothing more. I blinked and they were gone. Was I dreaming? My heart raced as I stumbled out of bed. Then I heard it, a voice whispering my name. Jamie. I froze, panic shot through me. I turned to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. It was stuck, like someone was holding it shut. And then I heard laughter, a light mocking sound, just behind me. I felt ice grip my veins. I was not alone. In that moment I realized I had let my solitude lead me into a nightmare. All I could do was stand there, frozen, waiting for whatever was lurking to reveal itself. I stood completely still, my breath hitching in my throat. The laughter faded, but the feeling of being watched only intensified. I forced myself to focus. The voice had called my name. Whoever, or whatever, was in the cabin wanted me. The door still wouldn't budge. I pushed against it with all my might, panic flooding my senses. As I struggled, a chill shot through the air like someone had stepped too close. I turned around slowly, my heart racing. That's when I saw it. A fleeting shadow flit across the wall, ignoring the dim light from the bedside lamp. "Hello?" I called out, trying to sound brave. The sound felt weak in the stillness of the room. No answer. Maybe I was imagining things. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking shaky breaths to calm myself. Just then I heard the thud again, this time from directly above me. Thud. It reverberated, sounding like it was getting closer, echoing through the stillness. I swallowed hard. I had to get out of the room. I took a deep breath and tugged at the door again. It creaked slightly, and to my relief it finally opened. I rushed into the hallway, my heart pounding. I needed to know what was happening. The attic seemed like a good place to start. Against my better judgment, I made my way toward the stairs, each step sending a jolt of fear through my body. As I reached the attic door, a rush of cold air hit me. I hesitated for a moment. What if whatever was up there could sense me? But curiosity pushed me forward. I turned the knob and opened the door, revealing a room filled with shadows and dust motes swirling in the fading light. I stepped inside and scanned the corners. The trunk was still there, but now it felt more sinister somehow. It was as if it had been waiting for me. I shivered as the thudding resumed, more insistent now. It felt alive, as if it were beckoning me. I glanced around the room, searching for something, anything that might help me make sense of all this. That's when I noticed it. A small wooden box tucked in the corner near the old trunk. It appeared ancient, with markings carved into the surface. My heart raced. I approached with caution, glancing up at the ceiling. The thudding was deafening now, like a heartbeat thrumming through the cabin. With trembling fingers I picked up the box. It felt warm to the touch, which was strange for something that looked so old. I opened the lid slowly, almost too afraid to see what was inside. My breath caught. Inside was a collection of old letters, crumpled and yellowed with age. They were addressed to Clara. I pulled one letter out and unfolded it gingerly. The writing was shaky but readable. Clara, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to end this way. My stomach twisted. What had happened to Clara? Was this related to the events I had been experiencing? I felt a sudden rush of wind through the attic as if something was protesting my intrusion. The letters slid from my grasp and scattered across the floor. And then I heard it again. A soft whisper hovering behind me, low and clear. You shouldn't have come here. I spun around, but the room was empty. My mind raced. I needed to leave, but as I turned toward the door, I realized too late that the shadows around me were shifting and deepening. My pulse quickened as the shadows coiled around me. There was a heaviness in the air, an impending sense of dread that gripped my throat. I backed away toward the door, but it was as if the darkness itself were alive, blocking my escape. Clara, I murmured, the name heavy on my tongue. The letters swirled around my feet, whispering secrets of a past I didn't understand. I had to get out, but the darkness felt like a weight on my chest. Then, right in front of me, a shape emerged from the scuttling shadows. It was vague at first, just a figure before it sharpened into focus. I could see a woman, her face obscured by long hair, her eyes hollow and mournful. Stop, I said, raising my hands instinctively. My voice quivered and broke. I'm not here to hurt you. The woman didn't respond, but she stepped closer. The room felt colder as she advanced. I could scarcely make out the details of her features, but the sadness in her eyes was unmistakable, wrapping around me like a cold fog. There was a deep ache in my chest as I fought the urge to reach for her, to understand who she was. I forced myself to think straight. A connection back to Clara? Could she be Clara? I recalled the letter's words, echoing in my mind. I glanced at the scattered letters on the floor, desperate for answers. Clara? Is that you? I stammered, my heart racing. The figure paused, and for a brief moment I thought I might see a flicker of recognition. But then, just as quickly, she turned and pointed toward the corner of the attic. The gesture felt urgent, like a warning. I squinted into the shadows where she pointed, and noticed something glinting among the dust, a small pendant. I hesitated, unsure if I should approach, but instinct urged me forward. I took a tentative step, and the woman's visage flickered as I moved. With each step I felt the air grow thicker, heavy with sorrow. I reached down and picked up the pendant. It was linked to an old broken chain, shaped like a key. As soon as my fingers closed around it, the attic erupted in a cacophony of sound. The thudding intensified, reverberating through the floor beneath me. The shadows surged forward, twisting and spinning around me, and I gasped as a chilling wind swept through the room. Leave, the woman shrieked, her voice now assertive, cutting through the chaos. I stumbled back, clutching the pendant tightly as the darkness pressed in. My instincts kicked in, and I turned to the door. I had to get out, had to escape whatever nightmare this was turning into. But before I could reach the exit, the shadows morphed into figures, more shapes joining the woman. I could feel their cold, lingering presence behind me, urging me to stay. The very air buzzed with tension. I was trapped between the door and the growing mass of whispers. Then everything went dark. I blinked, realizing too late that the whispers were fading as if heading towards something, a truth I was not yet ready to uncover. As the last light dimmed, I felt the weight of the pendant in my pocket, like a promise lingering in the shadows. I had to discover its secret. But where would that knowledge lead me? Would I find Clara? Or would I lose myself in the depths of the unknown? The darkness was suffocating. I slammed the door behind me, my heart racing as I fled down the narrow staircase. I needed to escape the attic, the shadows, and the eerie presence of the woman. Each step I took down felt like a mile. My lungs burned with every frantic breath, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As I reached the base of the stairs, the hallway stretched out before me. The old wooden floor creaked, echoing my racing pulse. I rushed down the corridor, but the memories of the attic clung to me like cobwebs. What had just happened? Who was that woman? Could she really have been Clara? I burst through the front door, the cool night air hitting my face like a splash of cold water. I stood there for a moment, gasping, trying to regain my bearings. The moon hung full in the sky, illuminating the path ahead. I glanced back at the cabin, half expecting to see the shadows following me, but all was quiet now. With shaking hands, I fished out the pendant from my pocket. The cool metal felt significant, almost alive in my grasp. I had to know its story. As I stared at it, I noticed a symbol etched into the key shape, a crest I had seen somewhere before. Was it Clara's? I turned it in the light, desperation crawling up my spine. Then, I heard a soft rustling behind me. I whipped around, squinting into the darkened woods that surrounded the cabin. Was it just the wind, or something else? The rustling became louder, more distinct. I caught a glimpse of movement among the trees, a fleeting shadow darting between the trunks. "Who's there?" I called, my voice shaking. Silence greeted me. My heart hammered in my chest again, fear bubbling at the edges of my mind. I decided I couldn't stay out here. I turned back to the cabin, ready to step inside for safety, but stopped dead in my tracks. At the top of the stairs, framed by the door, was the woman from the attic. Her form flickered in and out of focus, and the sadness in her eyes pierced right through me. A chill ran down my spine. "Clara," I whispered, half incredulous. She raised a finger to her lips, a silent plea for me to be quiet. Then her eyes darted to the woods behind me, filled with dread. Before I could react, she vanished, dissolving into the shadows. Panic flooded my senses. Something was coming, and I could feel it looming behind me. I dashed inside, slamming the door shut. I locked it quickly, my mind racing. This was no longer just about Clara. I was in something deeper, something darker. I could sense it in the air, that weight of secrets pressing down on me. The pendant felt hot against my skin, pulsing with a life of its own. I knew it held important clues, but what was it leading me to? I could either hide or dig deeper, and right now, hiding felt like the worst option. That's when I heard it, a soft tapping at the window. It was persistent, almost a rhythm. I turned slowly, dread crawling up my spine as I approached. It could be a trick of the mind, or it could be something that wanted me to look. I drew in a breath and took a step closer, my heart racing. What awaited me on the other side of that glass? I edged closer to the window, each step heavier than the last. The tapping continued, irregular but demanding. My breath caught in my throat as I resisted the urge to back away. I had to see what was out there. I peered through the glass, my heart racing as I scanned the darkness. The moonlight barely broke through the branches overhead. Shadows danced across the ground, playing tricks on my mind. But then I saw it. A face, pale and ghostly, staring back at me. I jumped back, my pulse skyrocketing. Was it another trick of the light? Or had I really seen someone? I squinted again, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The face was gone, swallowed by the night. I needed to focus. I should get back to the pendant. There had to be something about it that made sense of all this madness. I turned away from the window, but before I could leave, I heard a creak above me. It was subtle, yet it sliced through the air. My heart lurched into my throat. Either I was imagining things, or someone, or something was in my house. I grabbed the pendant tightly, my fingers wrapped around the cool metal for reassurance. It almost seemed to vibrate in my hand, urging me to confront whatever it was. Quietly, I moved toward the staircase, each step slow and cautious. The creaking sound repeated, and this time it was louder. It was coming from the attic. The place I had just escaped from. Was Clara back? Or something worse? The sight of the staircase sent a wave of dread crashing over me, but I couldn't ignore it. I had to know what was going on upstairs. With trepidation gnawing at my gut, I took the first step. The wood groaned beneath me, each noise amplifying my anxiety. Was I being foolish? I could just run right out the front door, but something compelled me to go up. Curiosity? Fear? I didn't know. With each step, I forced myself to remember Clara's eyes. The way she had looked at me before disappearing, the urgency in her warning. As I reached the top, I turned to face the darkened attic door. It loomed before me, slightly ajar. A faint light flickered inside like a candle burning in the shadows. Heart in my throat, I pushed the door. It swung wide open, and I was hit by a mix of warmth and the unmistakable scent of something musty. The room was dimly lit, and as my eyes adjusted, I understood the source of the flickering light. It was a small candle resting on a dusty table. The table was cluttered with various objects, one of which caught my eye immediately, a torn diary lying open. The words were smudged, but I could make out one name repeatedly. Clara. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut behind me, trapping me inside. I spun around, panic rising in my chest. The shadows deepened, and for one terrifying second, I thought I heard whispers, fragments of conversation that echoed like distant thunder. Then everything went dark. "What's happening?" I whispered into the void, the pendant growing warm against my palm. I had stumbled into a trap, and whatever was watching me had just made its move. I needed to get out, but I had to figure out what this diary held first. As I stood in the pitch blackness, the silence felt oppressive, like a thick blanket suffocating me. The warmth of the pendant was the only comfort. I wished I could see, to know if I was truly alone or if something lurked just out of sight. Slowly I reached out, my fingers brushing against the table's edge. I had to find that diary. The flickering light had vanished, but I remembered where it sat. With each grasping touch, I finally felt the worn cover beneath my fingertips. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding and pulled it toward me. I fumbled for the candle. When I finally found it and held it up, its weak glow illuminated the room just enough. I could see the dark beams of the attic and the dust motes floating lazily in the air. My heart still raced, but I focused on the diary, flipping through its pages. "Clara," I whispered, tracing the letters with my fingers. Most passages were incomplete. Scratches of thought smeared like tears left behind. They were filled with frantic drawings and poorly written accounts of strange occurrences. My stomach dropped as I read a sentence that stopped me cold. "The door to the other side is nearly open." What did that mean? Had Clara been in contact with something? I felt a chill creep down my spine. The implications of her words weighed heavily on my mind, as if unseen forces were drawing closer. Then, that creaking sound returned. But it was different now. It was louder, more urgent. I turned quickly to the attic door, but it remained solid and shut. I skimmed through more entries, hoping for a clue or some understanding. The names in the diary shifted alongside Clara's. There were others, people I didn't recognize, each entry becoming more frantic, leading to a singular warning: "Don't let them in." What was she so afraid of? I remembered the face I'd seen outside. Was this somehow connected? Suddenly the floorboards groaned beneath me, echoing a hollow sound. My breath caught as I scanned the room, adrenaline pumping. The shadows seemed to writhe around me, as if they were alive. It felt like they were watching, waiting. Then everything shifted. The candle flickered violently, casting wild, dancing shadows across the walls. Time slowed as I saw something moving, a dark figure creeping along the edges of my vision. Heart pounding, instinct kicked in, and I snapped the diary shut. I had to find a way out. I rushed toward the door, but as I pulled it, it wouldn't budge. Panic surged again. I pushed harder, but it felt like there was something holding it shut from the other side. The whispers returned, louder now, merging into a distorted chorus. Just then, in that chaos, I felt it. A cold breeze brushing past me, like a warning that sent shivers through my entire body. I stepped back, my heart racing faster now. Then I heard it. like claws scraping against wood. I froze, my eyes wide as I finally realized I wasn't alone in the attic. My decision was made. Whatever Clara had done, whatever had drawn me here, it was time to face it. But I had to act quickly. The door held firm, and the whispers were now shouting her name. "I'm not leaving without answers," I declared, clutching the diary tight as I turned to confront whatever was there with me in the dark. And then, a sinister giggle echoed from somewhere behind me. I swallowed hard, the sound piercing through the dimness like a knife. I twisted slowly, trying to pinpoint where the giggle had come from. It felt surreal, like a moment pulled straight from a nightmare. My instincts told me to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Heart racing, I held the candle high, its flickering light just managing to cut through the darkness. I could see the edges of the room, the clutter of old furniture and forgotten memories, but there was still no sign of that chilling laughter. Then, just above the heavy breathing that filled my ears, I heard it again. "Clara." The voice was sweet and mocking, dripping with an innocence that twisted into something sinister. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. Silence answered me. Then the giggle returned, this time closer. Too close. I could hardly breathe as I gripped the diary tighter, as if it could shield me from whatever was lurking in that darkness. With a surge of determination, I moved toward the edge of the beam, angling the candle like a weapon. Shadows danced around me, teetering and collapsing, while whispers pressed in. "Let me in. Let me in." My blood ran cold as I recognized the patterns echoed in the diary. That was exactly what Clara had warned against. The pulling sensation intensified, urging me to give in, to trust. "No!" I shouted, fighting against whatever was beckoning. I backed toward the door, but I couldn't shake the sensation that I was being cornered. A chill swept through the attic, flicking the candle's flame. I shielded my eyes, but the darkness thickened, wrapping around me like tendrils. Then out of the corner of my eye I caught movement. A shadow flitted from one side of the attic to the other. Panic surged again, and I took a half step back, my hand slipping as I fumbled to maintain the candle's light. That's when I saw it, an outline, small and distorted, standing against the far wall. At first I thought it was just my imagination, but then the figure began to solidify. My heart raced as the candle's sputtering light revealed what looked like a girl, her face small and pale, eyes wide and empty. "Clara?" I whispered, hoping to make sense of it all. Maybe she needed my help. But the girl didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward a corner of the room. Instinctively, I took a step forward, driven by curiosity and fear. As I did, the air thickened, a heavy pressure building around me. The whispers grew to a howling pitch, converging into a single frantic chant. "Let us in! Let us in!" I stumbled back, my breath catching. The girl's mouth stretched into a wide grin, but it was devoid of warmth. Just as I turned to flee, the attic door burst open hard, slamming into the wall with a deafening bang. That was my chance. I bolted towards the door, but an unseen force pushed against me, freezing me mid-stride. As panic clawed at my throat, the whispers escalated around me, each voice merging into a restless symphony of rage and desperation. And in that moment of dread, I realized the truth. I was the one being drawn in, as Clara had warned. No longer just a spectator, I was about to be part of whatever dark game awaited in the shadows. Tried to scream, but no sound came out. I was locked in place, as if the shadows had an iron grip on me. The girl's eerie smile widened, revealing teeth that almost didn't look human. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the nightmarish whispers that wrapped around me. Suddenly, the candle flickered dramatically, almost dying. In that brief moment of darkness, I felt the force lift just enough for me to break away. I stumbled back toward the open door, the corridor beyond beckoning like a lifeline. I hurled myself into the space, scrabbling to regain my footing as the weight of the attic's presence receded. Slamming the door behind me, I leaned against it, breathless and trembling. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to push away images of that distorted girl and her unnatural grin. I had to think. I needed a plan. Then I remembered the diary. I rummaged through my pockets, my fingers trembling as I pulled it out. The pages were filled with Clara's tight scrawl, She had written about the darkness, the voices that haunted the family home. If I could just figure out what she had meant about the separation between the worlds, maybe I could escape whatever force was trying to drag me back. A loud thud echoed from the attic door, shaking the wood beneath me. Adrenaline kicked in, and I took off down the narrow hallway, searching for a way out. The house felt alive, creaking and groaning as if it disapproved of my escape. The whispers followed, their tone taunting and resentful. "Let us in," they chanted, drowning out my thoughts. I rushed down the stairs, the banister cold and unwelcoming under my hand. I could hardly see where I was going, but I remembered the layout from my earlier exploration. The front door was my beacon, a flimsy promise of safety. Reaching the bottom of the stairs, I sprinted for the front room. I could feel the chill behind me, pressing closer, as if the darkness itself wanted to claim me. I could see the door ahead, a sliver of moonlight spilling through the glass. I grabbed the handle, twisting it with every ounce of strength I had, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged again, and I yanked at it, feeling a cold breath on the back of my neck. Just as I was about to scream, a voice, Clara's voice, called out from the shadows, "You have to let go. He's not yours, you can't own him." My pulse raced as realization dawned. Clara wasn't just a victim, she was fighting too. I turned back to the darkness, ready to confront whatever was lingering. "Clara, is that you?" Her voice emerged, stronger this time. "You're stronger than them. Don't let them take you." In a sudden rush of resolve, I let go of the handle and stepped back. I had to confront the darkness head-on. The whispers faltered for a moment, the oppressive force around me retreating. "Leave me alone," I shouted into the blackness, feeling the air tremble with intensity. In that moment of declaration, the outline of the girl flickered at the edge of the light, but she looked almost vulnerable. For a heartbeat, I understood. She was trapped too. Just as I turned to make for the door again, the lights flickered, plunging me into another veil of black. I gasped, my heart racing again at the sudden uncertainty. I steadied myself, knowing I had to make a choice, and then I saw it. In the corner of the room, an old mirror stood, its surface warped. A secret was coursing through it, something powerful and unsteady. I took a deep breath, ready to uncover the truth behind Clara's warning. Whatever lay in that reflection, it was interconnected with everything, and time was running out. I took a step toward the mirror, my heartbeat matching the quickening whispers echoing in the room. The glass seemed to pull me in, reflecting not just my figure but a fleeting shimmer of what lay beyond. I had to know. As I neared it, the air thickened, wrapping around me like a vine. That oppressive feeling returned, swirling with images of Clara's struggle. I reached out, fingertips brushing against the cool surface. The moment I touched it, a jolt coursed through me. "Mister," a voice rasped. This time it wasn't Clara. I gasped and stepped back, rubbing my hand together, the sensation still prickling at my skin. The voice grew louder, ricocheting around the room. "You can't leave," it hissed. "You must stay and help." I could feel the walls closing in, the mirror now a portal offering more than just a reflection. "Help with what?" I shouted, feeling absurd yet desperate. "Free us," the voices wailed in unison, a chorus of desperation mixed with anger. "You have the power." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "Power? I'm just a visitor." Then the memory of Clara's diary flashed in my mind. Dark forces were reaching for me, aiming to keep me tethered to this place. I looked back at the mirror. "What do you want me to do?" Almost as though the mirror itself responded. The surface rippled and an image formed. Clara, her face a picture of anguish, staring back at me from another world. Her mouth moved, but the words were lost in the rush of shadows swirling around her. Panic gripped me. I had to act. "Clara!" I screamed, but the image darkened and she vanished. All I could see was my terrified face trembling in the glass. With a newfound determination, I raised my arm again, fingers stretching toward the mirror. "If your freedom depends on me, then tell me how." The whispers grew frantic, a mix of fear and urgency. "Break the bond. Break the mirror." Just as I leaned closer, the lights flickered once more, plunging the room into darkness. I couldn't see, but I could hear the shadows gathering. A cold dread wrapped around me as I felt a force pushing against my back. "What are you waiting for?" Clara's voice pierced through the darkness, louder this time. "You're not just a visitor. You have to choose." I felt the weight of choices crashing down around me. There was no escaping the danger, the intertwining of my fate and theirs. I was part of this darkness, not just an observer. Then everything changed. A sharp crack rang out as the mirror shattered, glass shimmering like falling stars. I stumbled back, blinded by flashes of light. A wave of energy surged, washing over me. I grasped at the remnants, desperate to create something out of the chaos. That's when I saw it. In the shards, Clara's face glimmered once more, but not in despair. This time, she smiled faintly. "Thank you," she whispered, and then the darkness roared in defiance. I felt the air shift around me, as if the house had taken a deep breath. What would happen next? Would this action save Clara, or unleash even more chaos? Time was winding down. I had to figure it out fast. I stumbled back, a swirl of emotions crashing over me as the last shards of the mirror clinked against the floor. The shadows seemed to intensify, pulsing with fury, their whispers now a mad cacophony around me. But amid that noise, Clara's grateful expression lingered in my mind, urging me forward. As the force of the darkness pressed in, I charged toward the doorway, my heart racing. The air felt thick and tangible, as if it were alive, holding on to its secrets with a vice grip. As I reached the door and grabbed the handle, time felt suspended. "This has to work," I muttered under my breath. I pulled with all my strength. The door swung open with surprising ease. I was out in the cool hallway again, a mix of fear and determination surging through me. The night air wafted in from the cracked windows, carrying away some of the oppressive weight I had just fled. My breaths came in quick, desperate gasps. I glanced back at the attic door, behind which the cacophony of wailing voices still echoed. It felt heavier than before, as if something dark was festering, enraged by my escape. But I couldn't go back. No, I had to move forward, to reach the safety of the world outside. But outside, the woods loomed ominously in the moonlight. I stepped cautiously, questioning if I imagined Clara's gratitude or if the darkness had simply shifted gears in its pursuit of me. A part of me felt her presence still hovering in my consciousness, like a tether I couldn't break. As I exited the cabin, I heard a faint rustle, a whispering sound slipping through the trees like a secret. I spun around, squinting into the darkness. "Clara?" I called hesitantly. Did she somehow follow me out? Silence answered me. Just the flickering leaves in the gentle breeze. Chills prickled down my spine as I walked further from the cabin, the pendant still warm in my pocket. It felt like more than just a trinket. It was a key to something deeper, something unfinished. But was it meant to help Clara? Or was it a link to the darkness I had barely escaped? The night wrapped around me, its silence almost deafening. Every rustle and creak felt like it could be a reminder of what I just fled. But all I could do was keep walking away from that house, the memories of its shadows chasing like ghosts at my back. Not wanting to look back too soon, I pressed onward toward my car, parked under the fading glow of the moon. And as the cabin loomed behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching, waiting for my return. I reached my vehicle and fumbled for the keys, pushing thoughts of Clara and the dark forces inside to the back of my mind. I had to focus on getting out and away from here. Once inside, I turned on the engine, its rumble cutting through the tension that filled the air. As I backed out, I took one last glance at the cabin, my heart pounding. The windows were dark, ethereal shapes creeping in and out of sight as if hungry for my presence. As I sped down the winding roads, I felt the weight of the pendant pressing against my thigh. The soft glow of its antique metal reflected in the dashboard light, reminding me that the connection to its secrets was still alive. It was almost as if it was calling to me. Would I ever truly escape the darkness? Or had I merely put a pause on the events that would still unfold? As questions gnawed at my mind, my grip tightened on the wheel. With each turn, the cabin and the dark whispering tales of Clara seemed further away. Yet something deep inside kept telling me that this wasn't over. There were answers lurking in shadowy places, possibly dangers waiting just beyond the veil. Weeks turned into months after I left that cabin. I returned to my life, but everything felt different afterward. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting Clara or the darkness to come calling. I moved to a different city, far away from cabins and whispers, but it never felt quite right. At night, when the quiet settled in, my mind wandered back to that night and the things I had seen. Even now, when the wind rustles through the trees, I wonder if Clara is still waiting, stuck in a liminal space, or if the dark forces are looking for another victim. I still have the pendant sitting in a drawer. It's a reminder, a mystery unsolved. Sometimes, just sometimes, I think about it and wonder if I should search for Clara again, or if I should let her go entirely, along with the burdens of my past. But as I sit with that emotion, I can't shake the feeling that one day I'll have to make a choice. And on that day, I hope to be ready.